Hello?
Hey Bradley, you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I can
Hi.
hear you. Yeah.
How are you doing today?
How are you doing today? Yeah, doing good.
Good. Well, congratulations
Congratulations
on the talk. It
on
was
the
very
talk.
good.
It
I
was
saw it
very
on
good. I saw it
YouTube.
on YouTube. Yeah. Nice. I did see the psychophysics of non-neuronal. That was really nice.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's good.
Yeah,
We
it's
had,
good. Yeah.
I think,
I
pretty
think
good. I
pretty
think
good.
some interest in it. I
Some
saw some
interest in
people
it. People
liking it on Twitter
liking
and
it on
doing
Twitter and doing
some. I haven't
some.
really gotten any
I haven't really gotten
correspondence
any
about it, but
on it.
so you can wait for a few more
Wait for
people,
a few more
maybe.
people maybe. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess we can get started now. Welcome to the meeting. If you're watching this on YouTube, uh, we're just finishing up Neuromatch, and this is sort of the aftermath. We had a lot of good talks this week. I think they're well received. I don't know, like I haven't gotten any correspondence about them, but I got some pretty good questions in the sessions, and I know that Akshara presented on her talk, her interest, and presented that talk, non-neuronal, psychophysics and non-neuronal cognition. That was also presented. We also had the developmental AI talk, which was actually pretty good. And then we also had one from Krishna Katyal, who did a comparison of biological neural networks and artificial neural networks. And that was in the same session as the developmental AI. So we got put in that same group, and it was a pretty good. That was actually a pretty good session. I can't find the YouTube video for it, but in case, I think people were really kind of turned on by it. So let's see. The first thing to mention is that actually, I don't know if we need to go back to the Neuromatch stuff or not. I think we'll. All I know is that the sessions are supposed to be archived on YouTube, and I'm not sure that all of the sessions are. But we had, yeah, but we had a. So we also Rishabh presented on his Mind's Eye presentation, which was we talked about that in a couple meetings ago. So I didn't see the archive of that either. I don't know why it wasn't in there, but and then Jesse and Anson were going to present on print, trajectories of cognition, but that had to be postponed. So yeah, so they had to. They're going to try to do it at a later date. We'll see. I think they're planning on doing neural matches like every 6 months or so. So there'll always be more opportunities to do. Like I'm sure there'll be a neural match for, but it'll be maybe sometime in the spring. Okay, so why don't we talk about the? So we submitted to this. We submitted to the two uh, NeurIPS workshops, Baby Minds and Shared Representations. And so the Baby Minds submission was rejected. And that was, let's see, I think it talked about this in Slack. So basically, the idea was that it wasn't a very good fit for what they were actually looking for. So they were actually looking for, let me share my screen here. So they were actually looking for more sort of human centric developmental stuff. So here we go. Uh, So they made both reviewers made the same decision. While the paper presents an interesting idea, it does not seem suitable for this workshop. Okay. So then what were the reviews? It's an interesting paper inspired by a biological developmental process. The authors have attempted to analyze developmental process using DBVs. They've analyzed the developmental process in terms of developmental freedom, spatial embodiment, critical period regulation. And then the strengths and weaknesses. This paper attempted to simulate the human developmental process by machine learning from several points of view through DBV. However, there are no specific experimental results for contingency analysis. So they wanted a more robust experimental result, which, you know, similarly is necessary for DBVs to explore the nature of developmental learning and discuss whether the contingency analysis makes sense. Rather, a leap is seen in the connection with machine learning. And then it would be nice if there are figures or tables. Well, yeah, we didn't really have a lot of room for that. In the contingency analysis, recommend a visual plot of the neural network's changes in terms of the critical period. In my opinion, attempting to design a DBV and explain several aspects of the developmental process from a different point of view is fine. However, I recommend to include a detailed description of the network architecture used, as well as more detailed analysis results. And then, in addition, a fundamental search is needed to simulate humans' developmental processes, or the human developmental process. It is necessary to take a deeper look at how one aspect of human development develops and how it changes. It is not enough to claim to simulate a person's developmental process by creating or substituting one agent. So this is the first reviewer. The second reviewer, they summarize this. They say not clear if this is biologically plausible. The genetics section was not very clear. So I mean, there were some because we had a very short space to put it in, and we put it together pretty quickly. A lot of that was, we could improve upon it if we want to go further. So basically, I took that paper, made some changes, a couple of changes to it, and put it up as a preprint in time for Neuromatch. So let me share that. So this is the preprint. This is on ResearchGate. So this is just a way so that people, when they see the talk at Neuromatch, they can go and they can find the paper and read it and then give feedback. So we've already got 25 reads on it. This was posted, I think, Thursday morning, Wednesday evening. And then the talk was Thursday afternoon. So it was, it's not been up very long. It's already gotten 25 reads. So I think people are going to be interested in that. There is a change in the title a little bit. I just got rid of biologically inspired. And there, a little bit of clarity and a little bit more clarity in the genetics section. But other than that, it's, we should now, what the advantage of a preprint is that we can update it as need be. So we can update the version that's up here now. I don't know how to show where the paper comes up, but we can, when you go to the paper part of it, which is not showing up here, you can see you can just change the version there. And so that's the advantage of that. It's, you can update it whenever you want, and you can then add things in. So that was, I thought we would have a better shot at it, but I guess they wanted things that were more specifically human, so it's fine. As for the other paper, which was the shared visual representations, that is still pending. So I haven't heard anything about that. Let's see. Do I have the note in here or not? Probably not. But I think I put it in the email this week. There were 40 submissions to that workshop, which they reported on Twitter, and they had, it's a 60% accept rate. So we have somewhat of a shot for it, but I don't know. We'll see. It's not a given though. We know that. So that's about the baby mind stuff and the shared visual representation stuff. So I didn't know if Jesse was going to come today, but he asked me on Slack about an admin issue having to do with the like if you want to use like lab branded materials for your slideshow. Say you want to put a title slide on. We have some resources in this lab admin folder, and you probably have to get permissions for this. But this is something that if you want to use, you're welcome to do it. So let me share my screen again. So this is the, here's some thanks for your attention slides that are kind of, interesting. If you're interested in that sort of thing, if you want to cap your talk off with a flourish, we have all of these different designs. And then if you want to put in a title slide here, let's see, this is a PowerPoint template. This is okay. Oh, this is this is something else. This is it. So these are title slides. So this one is I didn't use any of these for the Neuromatch stuff, but these are available. These are like the logo in different settings. It'll, this is actually more traditional here where you have the title and you can put authors and you can move these elements around, but they're, basically the, like the GitHub repo and the website, the Twitter feed, and then the YouTube channel. I think there's also a LinkedIn channel too, or a LinkedIn page. So I didn't put that on here, but you can put those, you can put actually whatever you want on here to add in. So we also have a color scheme if you're not aware. We have a color scheme here on this side. This includes DevaWorm and some of the OpenWorm things, which are relevant to this group. And there's some things associated with the blog that are.
Oh, looks like.
Oh, hi.
Hello.
Yeah, how are you?
Were both in the link for 13 because that was what was in the email.
Oh, sorry.
No problem.
Who else was in there?
No, I guess I just copied the link wrong somehow, or like auto-filled into something. I don't know.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Okay, I just see it, Anson. So, yeah, I'll probably recap what I was talking about. But, yeah, so let me go back over this part. So, I was showing Aksh and people on YouTube this stuff that we have in this folder, Oral Lab Admin. So, Jesse asked me on... over Slack, he asked me if we had any like title slides or anything else. So this is like a collection of title slides that we have. So these are different designs with the logo on it and the the name of the lab and some of the communication channels that we have, and then you can put your name on or whatever. We also have some thank you for your attention slides that are kind of cute. They have like different themes, so that's always fun. And then like we have a color template. So this is the basic the main lab colors, and there's some colors for the blog that I often write on, and you're welcome to write on if you want. And then there's some DevaWorm and OpenWorm color schemes that are relevant to the other group, but those are. If you want to, the advantage of this, I guess, is just to standardize colors to find some nice colors that match up with some of the other talks. So that's all in Lab Admin. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. If you're doing talks in the future, you may want to use those or not. But yeah, I think so. to recap, we were talking about Neuromatch. I think that the sessions went pretty well. I don't know what you guys, Jesse and Anson, if you saw anything that you really enjoyed. I know we put some things in the Slack channels, some like talks that were interesting, people. But yeah, I mean, we had so you guys had the talk on the trajectories of cognition that was postponed. But then Ash got a talk on her work, and that was a little early for North America, but it was it's on one of the YouTube archive channels. I can't remember what room it was. I think it was like room 3 or 4 on Thursday. 3, okay. And then we had the developmental AI talk and Krishna's talk on artificial neural networks and biological neural networks. That was in the same session. And then we had the psychophysics of non-neuronal cognition talk, and I think that was also in 3, but that was a little later on in the day. So that actually was fairly well received. And so, yeah, our session, we had the host of the session actually was pretty excited about it. She was interested in it, so we were talking about it a little bit more. And so, yeah, I think it was pretty well received. I think it was a pretty good conference overall. So, is there anything anyone wanted to add about it, since we are kind of reflecting on it? What?
While I was just doing the work as such, I felt it needs to be, like materialized as such, and so that we can, publish it in something like the blog or something. That's really a cool thing to do, because I feel it's very interesting to me, and
yeah, we talked about a blog post, for the week. I didn't really get around to that, but we can do something to recap things. It might be nice to have to go back, maybe get some slides and profile some of the slides, talk a little bit more about each post or each talk, and maybe recap what was in the talk or the main idea. We also put some of the slides up on Figshare. So if you we have done this, and this is for I think 3 of the talks that I've been able to get. Let's see if I can get into this. All right, I'll try to get into it real quick. Okay, I got into it. Am I sharing my... No, I'm not sharing my screen. Let me share my screen. Because I have to log in to get into this thing. Okay. So this is what Figshare looks like. It's basically, you can put up files and share them with people. So I've been using this for years, and I have a lot of talks up here associated with different things, presentations, media. So I have 3 of the talks. And you can create your own Figshare account if you want to post slides, but basically this is one of the stubs. So this is the developmental AI stub. So this was something I tweeted out with an announcement for the talk. So it gives people the slides in the PowerPoint format and in the PDF format. And so we have our authors here, and this is the abstract. And then it gives you, of course, the number of views and downloads. So people, will go to this to get the slides after the talk or during the talk if they want to follow along. And this is an altmetric donut, which is something that sort of measures online engagement. So if it's mentioned on social media, there will be, a count added to this donut, and the number is reflective of all the places it's appeared on the web. So, if it's in a blog post, it'll add another number and have another color in the wheel in this donut. It's like each of these little whorls are like a different color, and they all represent like blogs or Twitter or whatever. And so that's something that I think will be useful. And we can draw from this for a blog post. That's why I bring it up. Psychophysics of Non-Neuronal Cognition, same thing. We have this. This is a little bit more mentioned, maybe a little bit more viewed. And I think it was just because people were maybe engaging with it from the talk. I don't really know why there's a difference. But and then the other one was this contrast between biological and artificial neural networks, which actually turned out to be a really nice talk. I think people were interested in that as well, quite a bit. So we can draw from like that. We can draw from that and point people to the slides. We have some of the talks archived, and then we can just kind of recap what happened in the meeting, like maybe our reflections on each talk, maybe future work, and then we have of course we have the paper, the X Baby Minds paper, we'll call it. So that we can include maybe some insights about that as well. So for Jesse and Anson, in case you hadn't heard, well, I mean, we talked about this a little bit on Slack, but the Baby Minds paper was rejected, and it was because it wasn't quite in the scope of what they were looking for the workshop. So it had, it wasn't, the reviews were, they had some shortcomings in terms of like, they wanted, more fuller results, for example, or some visualization of the networks, which, that's something that can be done. But ultimately, I think, they try to assess fit, and it wasn't exactly what they were looking for. But I think we can find another place for it. I'll just have to think through where that might be. But yeah, I think it'll be, because people were interested in the talk. So I think there's a, bright future for that. And then the shared visual representations paper, I have not heard anything about that. They're still in review. So we'll see if that happens. So any other thoughts at this point? Oh, I think that's Rishabh. Oh. Hello? Oh, okay. So, there, I don't know what happened. Well, anyways, he'll be joining us again. So let's see. Where are we here? Okay. Well, we have, I don't know how many of you celebrate Halloween, but I don't know if you look at like GitHub today, there's a Halloween theme on the contributions board. So it's all like candy corn colors or whatever this is. But I don't know. We can probably go back to revisiting this organizational GitHub. And again, this is something we've been talking about the last couple of weeks. So Rishabh is here, and I don't know if you've seen this. Hi, how are you? What's up?
I'm good.
So I don't know if you've seen this or not, but this is the organizational GitHub. So how many of you have joined? Yeah, a bunch of you have joined. That's 9. All right, 9 people. That's good. If you haven't joined, you can join. You can request to join up, or we can invite you. I think everyone got invites for this, or a lot of the people who have been regularly coming to the meetings, and people who have been here in the past, or have been invited. So I think we have a lot of those people already on here. And what's the advantage of this? Well, it's just a place where we can have, well, first of all, we can have teams. So Jesse is so graciously set up all these teams. We have epistemological directories, GSOC, the MIT CBMM Summer School, Neuromatch, and the representational brains and phenotypes. And I don't know what we'll do with these teams. Jesse was profiling this last week in the meeting, and this was like I think there's just, you can have discussions in these teams. It's kind of like Slack, but it's public, and you're able to do, you could actually link it to some repository. So like DVB repository is something we're going to put together. We're going to maybe take some of the best stuff from the developmental Brainberg vehicle repositories and put them in this repository. Some of the best stuff from the from this sort of main we can call it the legacy repo or the main repo, and put them into this organizational repo. And it would just be a place for people to, maybe develop things that are polished, or, maybe things that are time sensitive. I'm not really sure how we're going to use it, but if people have suggestions on how we might use this, let us know, because I think this is potentially a really nice resource, but it's hard to know exactly how to use it. It's just kind of like, I'm not really sure how to use it yet. So does anyone have any needs, or like they have any ideas of how we might use this resource?
Hey, sorry, I've been caught up in a bunch of stuff this morning. Just here now. I think the teams are actually kind of, and functionally speaking, the teams are an easy way to deal with access to stuff. Like so people don't have to keep, like, once you're a member of the group, how like in the old repos you have to add everybody. Oh, you want to be an actual contributor to the repo, or you want to have write access without having to do pull requests all the time. That seems like a shorthand way to do that. Like, you can very easily manage people's access. But also, like, am I? Oh no, I forgot. I'm not here. Let me do this quickly. Yes.
Okay.
Here's my. I don't know what happened about my screen sharing. It just stopped entirely. Anyway, doesn't matter. There are ways, like, you could have, it's kind of like a little bit of like, if you go to Teams and like the Neuromatch team, you can kind of have like a public little like news feed. It's very much like ResearchGate, and you can post little updates there and whatever sort of trinket stuff. That's not it's not. I haven't done anything with it this week at all, but it's sort of it's something to do, something to build out kind of more as you get more towards like the finished product or demo or deploy sort of thing. It would be there, and
like one direction could be like whatever we are posting on Slack, like particularly for Neuromatch, like it gets lost in the threads and it's only for the Slack group. What we could do is we could compile and put it on the GitHub, or on the, I don't know if Teams is visible for everyone, the discussion on the Teams. So we have a record of the Neuromatch slides or whatever we presented on the GitHub.
Yeah. And then, I think I said last time, like, I don't think everybody's going to be on GitHub all the time. Some of us are, that's fine, but not everybody's going to be there all the time. They don't have to be. They don't have to be writing all, like, I think Brad at some point said, having a really well manicured GitHub is something some people do, and I'm not expecting to do that all the time, or that everybody's post everything there. Like, you can use Slack like we have been, but at the same time, like if you're interested in posting updates about your projects or your works, then you kind of want to have a more, because the old repo and the old account, you can post updates, but they can very easily get kind of lost in the muck of things. But if you want to kind of say, hey, post, I wish I could share my screen, but I don't know why it's not even doing anything here for me. Actually, hold on a second.
Okay. Here we go. You can see your camera. Here we go. I think we got it. You're muted, Jesse. Oh.
Okay, hello.
Yeah, you're there. Good.
Well, as you can see, like, I just went to Teams and Neuromatch, and it's kind of this little update. Just something that we talked about here. It's not really updated, but feel free for anybody to come here and post your slides or commentary about what you did. It's kind of just an easy way to show what. Again, I kind of think of Research State with a kind of update mechanism of, what you've been doing. So this is all kind of not, it's not it's not super important, but it's there. So.
Yeah, I think that's nice. We also used in DevaWorm, we used to use something called Gitter. I don't know if you still use Gitter, but it was supposed to be like it's supposed to be linked to GitHub, but it was like a public chat channel. So you could set up your Gitter, and it was like specific to some team. And it kind of worked like this. Maybe that's where they're kind of pulling it from, is the Gitter channel idea. So you'd have like a Gitter, and you'd have like it would be linked to GitHub, and I think you could actually link issues to it. But I don't know if that's even still around. So, but anyways, that's something that we could try to do, something in that way. So if people come into the project and they might not want to get into the Slack, or they might have like a public question where, they might just ask it there. We can also put things like slides or even like blog posts. We could put blog posts there too. I mean, I don't know how it. Well, it's probably structured more like a chat, so we probably wouldn't want to actually put blog posts in there, but definitely like links to them. So it would give people some, public facing sort of, if you wanted to work on this project or want to find out more, if you just attended this talk and it really was interesting to you, then we can have a little, discussion board thing there where we have like resources and conversation. And
I really, I think I keep thinking of ResearchGate because you can just post different updates and public facing stuff, and I think it kind of encouraged like this. I want to have a much greater writing output going forward. I gave a little bit of an update of myself after this, but I think it'll be a nice way to associate, especially when you're writing like, GitHub can kind of be a project management tool and just code based, and extending beyond that now. A lot of it's really trying. It's all code oriented, but like there's a lot of things they're doing that are making it much more just a way to house open source. Well, I mean you can have private stuff too, but open source collaboration and public facing. It's encouraging to really have a lot of things alongside our district code, as far as I'm concerned, and I think that's a very cool thing. So have your projects, work on your projects, and post them. Give them spaces to be placed, and I'm really focusing on that. And anybody who wants help with that or talk about ideas too, you're welcome to do that here in the meetings or in Slack. So.
Yeah. Anyone else have any ideas about that or comments? Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is a continuing conversation. So if you're interested in, if you have some ideas, share them in Slack or just kind of, start using it how you see fit. We want to talk about it before we start implementing things, but just, if you have an idea, we can put it up and see what it looks like. And so, yeah, I think that'll be good though. I think it'd be a good way to get projects, get some exposure and, it's right now it's kind of opaque. If you go to, I know people have been trying to do this at GitHub repos. They've been trying to put a public face on them and use a README file. So GitHub wasn't really designed for, it was designed for one thing, which was using it to share code. And they've always had this sort of social media function to it, which, I've never found it to be particularly, dominant in the thing. You get people follow your repos and that, but there's now people are using it for so many other things. I've been talking with some people about using GitHub for, all sorts of different things. Image, storing image files and storing other types of text and, implementing spell checking on text, people writing books on GitHub. So people are using GitHub for a wide range of things. And some of it, of course, GitHub wasn't really built for. So people have to figure out how to, use it effectively. So it's definitely an issue that isn't, it's just kind of something you have to experiment with. So yeah, that's, well, yeah, if anyone else has any comments about that, we can share them in Slack or now if you want. Otherwise, I guess, Jesse, you had an update?
Oh, no, I wasn't as involved in Neuromatch as I'd like to be. I had a bunch of stuff going on this week. So I guess I apologize for that broadly. I had to do stuff about moving and stuff with my car and a lot of things happened, and it was sort of like I hope people talk. There's a lot of stuff from Neuromatch to review. I only really got to see a handful of talks that I really wanted to see. So I'd be curious to talk about that more. Yeah, there's a lot of you always meet people at Neuromatch anyway. So I'm happy to have done that. And there's some leads to follow up. And there was a really interesting talk on basically empathy and how to model empathy, which I linked. I think put that somewhere on Twitter. I forgot his name. I forgot the name of the person who was the PI in the talk for, but a really interesting talk on multi-agent modeling empathy versus what I think it was theory of mind versus empathy, and differentiating those things computationally. That was really interesting. There are a bunch of things I posted in Slack, and I appreciate everybody else posting in Slack too for Neuromatch, because this was definitely, out of everything that I've done in the last few months, it was the conference that I least fully attended. So, and it kind of was disappointing because I wanted to do a lot of things with it, but it didn't really work out this time. So that's my disappointing update. But other things I did, I'll very quickly share my screen for this too. If it works. Screen. Interesting. There you go. Like, speaking of Figshare, I have one. It's good to have one. Everybody should get a Figshare. Why not? But you can see mine. I posted actually. I was at a career panel, alumni panel for undergraduate research at my school, and that was also during Neuromatch, which is kind of why things were. It's one of the things that I also had to prioritize during all of this. So I mean, I just put this up yesterday after the panel, and let me do this. Cool. But you know, like I posted some things about my website, which I think I'm gonna move it back to Google Sites. But I think I'm gonna move away from Notion as more of a front end. But you know, just it was a nice little talk and kind of a trip down memory lane. For those who don't know, I don't think I mentioned it here before, but like you know, my old university has a undergraduate research center, and I got some grants to do research there before, and it was cool. So that was another one of the things that I did get to do this week, and that was good. But between that and Neuromatch, and finally getting settled, like I'm in a new location, as you guys know, and it was a different background, and I'm kind of. It was a week of, I don't know. I likened it to the example of like when there's a big dance or a big event, whatever you want to go to, a party, whatever, and you're like ready to go, and then it's like you kind of you're dressed up or you have your stuff in order, and it's like you're there, but you can't really. You kind of have to leave early, and it's this feeling of like, oh, it was kind of just a disagreeable, not totally fun week for me in that sense. So a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth about everything, but nothing to do with anybody here or the events, just like my own other stuff. But it's a sense of like, yeah, I really want to. I have so many things I need to finish writing and output, so I have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder going forward. So I did get to do something. I got to attend some very good talks. I got to attend my alumni panel, which was important to me, and you know that was good. But I look forward to furthering the projects here and other people's projects. I would give it a bit of a nod to Anson, because I know Anson's writing a paper. I don't know if you talked about this yet when I wasn't here, but you've got your own project for your course.
So I'm in an artificial intelligence course, and I sent a request my final project to be about give me a moment. To be about a survey of frontier research in artificial life, multi-agent systems, and artificial consciousness. The original assignment was mostly just a survey of like not general AI, but like artificial intelligence frontier research. It was described as mostly being about like self-driving cars, natural language processing, but I sent in a request, and hopefully she'll be down.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that fits a lot in it fits a lot of things that I've been looking at and other parts of the lab too. I mean, one of our big projects was along the lines of the multi-agent and kind of CGS, AVM, agent-based modeling stuff. So there's a lot of resources that we have that fit with that already. So that'll be cool. And also, like anybody, as a kind of a general lab manager notion, like I set up the teams that are in the lab team, like. You know, teams in GitHub, you know, are teams in GitHub, but like if people are interested in any specific path of, hey, I'd like to, you know, spearhead a project, let me know, let Bradley know, let us know, because we can build some things around it. And I think one of the coolest things of this lab, and that I've been through, like I've been here for over a year now, and it's kind of a way of getting your feet wet and understanding. But as you get more into things and have more and more specific ideas and stuff you want to pursue and build out, like there's a lot of room to develop your own projects here. Like you can join other things we're doing for sure. But if you're interested in any specific topic, there's a lot of means to do that here. And obviously, the more, there's quite a bit of opportunity to align with our other conference submissions and the things that we've been doing all along too. So that's sort of my personal update and lab manager nudge on different parts of stuff. So yeah.
Akshara, Rishabh, did you have anything to add? Did you have any updates?
I mean, like, my situation is a bit similar to Jesse's. Like, I wanted to attend this Neuromatch very bad, like, really interesting talks out there, but didn't quite get to it because of many other stuff going on. So I walked through like a couple of days worth of lectures on the theoretical and the computational neuroscience one. But apart from that, I wasn't able to do much. Personally, I'm currently working on, it's very raw. I'll share it like once I've gained a bit of ground in the domain. It's called diffusion tensor imaging. It's a subset of functional MRI. So we can extract the anatomical structures using the uh, uh, change in the direction of the water molecules in the white matter tracts in the brain. So working on like the extraction software and some processing on that. So more updates to come soon on that. Apart from that, I guess, yeah.
It's good. Yeah. Yeah, good luck with that work. That was sort of the mind's eye talk had that you were kind of trying to design a machine learning algorithm.
That was a bit no yeah for the mindset talk we didn't me and my co-authors we didn't get to present, like, again, like, I was tied up and so we have our NSIMs up here in India, um, so we didn't get to present, and for that what we were trying to do is we were trying to take a fMRI matrix, connectivity matrix, and train an autoencoder to extract the spatial information from the matrix, mainly the visual spatial information. So kind of a visual decoder from the fMRI image. But for that, I believe we submitted to AIII. The results should come today or tomorrow. For that, but uh, I'm kind of going into a different direction as contrast to my co-authors. So I'm working on more of a perception-driven, visual perception-driven direction. So after AIII, maybe it will spin off to something different. Hopefully, I can bring it into OI. And if anyone's interested, I'm happy to open.
Good. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, so if people are interested in that work, you might want to get in touch with Rishabh. I know that Stefan Dvoretsky, who has been in this group in the past, and he's a member of the GitHub team, one of the GitHub teams. He's working on a project where they're trying to predict EEG signals using deep learning, I think. So that seems to be a hot area almost, or an emerging area. So
Yeah, I think he reached out saying like he also did some work and when I posted the project on Slack. So I'll probably connect with him. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's good. Thanks for that update. Akshar, do you have anything to update us on, or?
I don't have much. I just think I need to work on some of the academic stuff as well as the paper which I presented. I just thought I could come up with some, like materialize with some more ideas into it. especially with the refractive errors. So I think that would do.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Yeah, so we've got a lot of things going on. And let's keep talking about it on Slack and people. It's the benefit of being in a group like this is you don't know who has expertise somewhere else. So if you put it on Slack, people might see it and say, "Oh yeah, I'm doing something similar." So it's always good to have that. Oh, Jesse, I was going to ask, why are you moving away from Notion?
Mostly just for my direct personal website. I think having my front end, I think I'll use it for some of the back end stuff, but I think front end and accessibility and just having a very clear website. My website won't look any different, but just I don't think hosting it. It wasn't really a major thing. It was mostly just ease of accessibility for users, because just some toying around with it. I think I've used Google Sites before as a very front end thing for my website, so that's it. But nothing really more than that.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I was just curious, but yeah, it looks good though. I mean, it looks really good. So let's see. I had a couple other things I was going to mention here. So I'm sharing my screen again. So we talked about the GitHub repos, the GitHub teams. There's like the MetaBrain models. We'll probably want to put that up on the. I think I talked to Jesse about the different things we might put on in the org. So
I also put I realized I remember something about that. I made a bunch of issues in the new repos. And I had some comments. I might have even tagged the oral account in them about various things about what to put on there. So anybody who wants to, anybody who has ideas about that or wants these sort of things there, go ahead. But I made some issues and some comments and some kind of response requests about that too. So just noting that here.
Okay. Yeah. So that's there. And then, so yeah, I had a couple of things to mention here in what I have in my papers folder here. So one thing we want to talk about here is, I saw this in the Slack. I thought this was interesting here. There was a talk, Electrophysiology of Affordances, that happened in room 4 on Friday. So it was one from yesterday. This looks like a pretty interesting talk. So this is basically the neurobiology of affordances. They talk about how you can find those or measure those using EEG and EMG. It's very good. So yeah, that might be something to check out in some of the archives. I noticed that they really hadn't organized the archives too much in terms of the YouTube channels. So you have to dig through the like, if you see that it'll be like Friday room 3, and then you have to go through the video and find the talk. But
seems like they're kind of just doing it by the big macro chunks of the sessions. Like that's what it seems like. Right?
Yeah.
So I was gonna ask about that. Also, I didn't even get to look at that electrophysiology one, but affordances. So wow, that's sort of a thing I want to look into. But anybody I would love, and this could be something that is part of the blog post if people want to contribute to that or something maybe, or at least just for in-house stuff. If there was a workshop or a discussion or a panel or anything that you really liked or would like to look at more, list it in Slack, because I think there's no way, there's so much stuff, so anything that you found relevant to your research interest, or you want to just look into more, please list it on Slack. because I think creating our own in-house sort of directory of interesting talks or relevant talks would be good, because we know they'll be available and will lead us to a lot of other things too. So just a note for that.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. I think it does need a bit of curation. Like it. I mean, I know it was like just a fast dump during the week, but I think they're like going back through a lot of these talks because there's so much stuff, and even like the like the sessions, like the queer and neuro and the black and neuro. Those were like, you know, those are on their own like sort of channels on YouTube. But I mean, if you're interested in those talks, they're there archived, and that might be something to check out as well and curate and say like, this is a session that you might have missed because there was so much going on that. But that's the nice thing about having it all archived. You can go back later and look at it. So.
And I might even just for like ease of myself doing this, I'm going to share my screen once again.
Oh,
and just
yeah, let me unshare mine.
Put this here, just so like if I look at this video later, I can see it. Can you see this?
Yes, yeah, the schedule
This
for this
one was
session.
really good. This session of Friday, room 7. I forgot, like I think it was in the afternoon. Attitudes as emergent products of associative evaluations, null-centric metacognitive approach for solving tasks, representing altruism and multi-agent theory of minds. Like this was a really good. This branched a lot of stuff that Anson mentioned. Some of the stuff in the cognitive, contextual geometric structures aspects, multi-agent stuff. I would highlight that as one particular thing to note. And then everybody else's stuff here. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
We can go on now.
Okay. Yeah. So thanks for that. Yeah, we'll definitely have to do more archiving of that, and yeah, that'll be coming in the next couple weeks. So let me go back to the other things here. So then there was this other thing that I had mentioned, was the Cyber Cafe Scientifique, and I'm not really sure what this is, other than they're looking for themes for like different sessions, and they would be like virtual sessions on something. So it was developed from the open science movement. Going online as a physical meetup became impossible. Since then, it has grown into an open science platform, giving opportunities to new and established speakers to talk about scientific topics they're passionate about, encouraging conversations in science. So this is a session that would be broadcast, and the event ends like December 17th. So I've been thinking about submitting something for this. I think it needs like a title and a description and then some notes. And I'm not really sure what the process is here. But I was thinking of coming up with something and putting it in and seeing if we can put together some sort of session on this. I was thinking maybe along the lines of like the community, our meetings in our community here. So like, we had I don't know if I had I kind of opened it by accident, but there's actually a talk on the lab that I think I was working with Jesse on for the old Envision, like way back in the Envision conference. There was a talk about the lab and the different things going on. So that might be something to do. Maybe update that and do that, submit that for this thing. And then if I don't know if they're not accepting talks anymore, we can still have that talk and maybe just do it online here in a call. So I mean that's a possibility too. So just let me know if you have any ideas about this. Again, I think it's pretty freeform, but I think it's something we can, we have to submit it, I guess, by December or probably sometime in the next couple weeks.
Oh, that's different. Is that the same as Charlotte? Is that Charlottesville?
No, this is different.
Okay.
So this is a different thing. But then there is the Charlotte's the Philosopher's Web Cafe, which is a different thing. And for this, I just wanted to bring this back up to the top of our minds here. This was something that Jesse invited me to, and I'm in the Slack, and we've been talking about. I've been talking about contributing a talk to this group, and she was asking if Jesse could organize it or moderate it or something. So I don't know. I haven't been in contact with her since. It's been pretty busy with Neuromatch and all this. So, but we need to get back in touch with her, I guess, soon, because I was talking about doing it like later this fall, so that would be coming up pretty soon, like late November, December, in that time frame. That's what I originally proposed. So, I mean, I think I can do it by then. I don't know if Jesse wants to get in touch with Charlotte again and find out a little bit more about like how that how he would moderate it, and then we would pick a time, and I would do do this talk, and I don't know how they organize it in this cafe, but this is like a set of virtual talks that they host, and I don't know that much about it. I mean, I can probably go back and look too, but just to make sure that we like keep on top of this, because I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't been in touch with Charlotte recently because of everything else that's been going on, but I'll reach out to her today and this week and
Okay.
touch up with that, because I think that's something that other people could, anybody here in the lab who's kind of interested in participating or attending like those sorts of things could also, that's a fairly open situation. So, but yeah, I'll reach out to her this week. That'll be part of my prospective events task list. So
Yeah.
speaking of that, if anybody's thinking of any upcoming events they want to participate in or submit things to, please always mention that in Slack. I know there's something called Neuro November upcoming. That may be an opportunity for many people here to present the stuff they've been doing, like Aksh or Rishabh stuff. I may look into presenting something there. I'm not sure, but that's one opportunity that I know it's upcoming. And I was able to get into Neuro IPS as a volunteer, so I'll be doing that later on too. But please mention anything for us to be aware of in that sense.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, then I think the final thing I wanted to talk about today. For Rishabh's benefit, and I don't even know if Anson and Jesse saw this. I have the reviews for the Baby Minds paper submission. So I have those available in this folder. I know Rishabh saw them. So this is like it basically goes through. I mean, a lot of it was that it wasn't a good fit for the workshop, but there are some points about like making it more robust, like additional results or like a diagram of the different contingencies. So I mean, there are things to work on there, and I did post a version of the paper to ResearchGate for so that people could go through the talk at the end. They could link through to the paper and read it. Well, we can update the paper now in different ways as we see fit. So like we'll probably be submitting it somewhere else later, but like for now we can update. We can add things to the paper. Add more detail or whatever, and that's something that is. So I mean, wherever we take it next, it'll be a little bit better. So that's the idea there. Finally, then we have these papers. I'm going to go through real quick. Maybe about 15 minutes I'll spend on these. These are papers in the reading queue again that, we do this often where we try to look at different papers that are out and bring people's attention to them. So the first one, this is a really interesting point of view. This is an eLife. This is from Peter Sterling, who, if you know anything about, or if you don't know his name and you're interested in allostasis, you should, because he's written a lot of stuff on allostasis. and allostatic drive and things like that. And so the paper is called Predictive Regulation of Human Design. So the abstract, let's read the abstract here. Oops. All right. Organisms evolving towards greater complexity were selected across eons to use energy and resources efficiently. Efficiency depended on prediction at every stage. First, a clock to predict the plant's statistical regularities, then a brain to predict the bodily needs and compute commands that dynamically adjust the flows of energy and nutrients. Predictive regulation, or allostasis, frugally matches resources to needs and thus forms a core principle of our design. Humans, reaching a pinnacle of cognitive complexity, eventually produced a device, the steam engine, that converted thermal energy to work and were suddenly awash in resources. Today, boundless consumption in many nations challenges all of our regulatory mechanisms, causing obesity, diabetes, drug addiction, and their sequelae, which means like associated factors. It's a word that they use in medicine. So far, we have sought technical solutions such as drugs to treat complex circuits for metabolism, appetites, and mood. Here I argue for a different approach, which starts by asking, why does our regulatory system, which evolution tuned for small satisfactions, now constantly demand more? So this is a sort of a point of view. He's kind of laying out this idea of allostasis, and so let's see. Here I suggest that these difficulties arise from one profound tension, a conflict between how we evolved to live versus how we live now. And then it mentions Sterling and Laughlin 2015, everything from proteins in cells up to organs and the behavior of whole organisms evolved to be efficient, and to be efficiently regulated by an efficient brain. So they talk about this efficient regulation in Sterling and Laughlin 2015. And they talk about the cellular origins of human computational capacity. So this is about sort of the talking about the cell as an analog to the computer and how cells perform computation, and this is sort of at the heart of this regulatory mechanism. So there is, this is it's a good point of view. I mean, it's going to have some good references in it. So this is predictive regulation allostasis. So this is his diagram here, where you have physiology, behavior, and the brain's core tasks. So this is kind of merging together some of the things in physiology and behavior with maybe some of the things we more associate with pattern recognition in the brain and things we try to simulate with machine learning or deep learning. But we're adding in a couple of different other subsystems, mainly this behavioral. Well, this is almost like a reinforcement learning circuit where you collect patterns and evaluate them and update them. And then you have this physiological aspect, which is we haven't talked about physiological regulation much. Well, we've talked about in this group a bit, but it basically serves the same function, and then you combine them into the brain's core tasks. And there's this, this is how things are regulated according to this model. One could even add the environment if you're more interested in embodiment. You could add that as well. This is kind of walks through some of the stuff. So again, like from the brain, and you go through pathophysiology and then the final causes. So, you're reinforcing your reward circuit, and you end up with all these different conditions, and then you end up with being expressed as a disease or some health outcome. And then this is a typical, like, the complexity of something like blood pressure. So, he's trying to make the point that it's a very complex system. And he actually does cite Sutton and Bartow in here. So he does talk a little bit about reinforcement learning. This is the reference list. So definitely check that out. Then there's this other paper here, Representations of Complexity, How Nature Appears in Our Theories. This is J.J. McDowell, This is a little older. This is 2013, but it's let's see if I can zoom in here. Okay. So in science, we study processes in the material world. The way these processes operate can be discovered by conducting experiments that activate them, and findings from such experiments can lead to functional complexity theories of how the material processes work. The results of a good functional theory will agree with experimental measurements, but the theory may not incorporate in its algorithmic workings a representation of the material processes themselves. Nevertheless, the algorithmic operation of a good functional theory may be said to make contact with our material reality by incorporating the emerging computations of material processes that material processes carry out. So this is this sort of it's sort of a complexity theory take on behavioral dynamics. So it's an interesting paper. I'm not really sure. I haven't really read it very carefully, but it looked kind of interesting. So there are two related questions to sort of the main thesis here. The first is, what does it mean to have two or more complexity theories with different algorithmic mechanisms that account for the same phenomena? And then, let's see, that's the second one. He doesn't really get into the second one very easily, but I mean, this is an interesting paper if you're interested in like complexity theory and representing it. How do you represent behavior as a complexity theory? And it might be in the weeds for some people, but it's it's still. He talks about artificial neural networks. Talks about computational equivalence. So these are all issues that computational equivalence is actually an interesting topic that we haven't really talked about. So Wolfram talked a lot about that in his book on cellular automata. And what his argument was is that you can take a cellular automata, which is a very sort of abstract model of a system, and you can cellular automata are set up as such because they're Turing complete and they have a lot of computational features that they're basically equivalent to systems in the natural world. So, like, people argue, well, your model is great, but it really doesn't reflect things in the real world. And Wolfram basically said, well, some classes of model can really mimic what you see in the real world, in the natural world, in terms of its computation. So a cellular automata can model a large number of natural systems, just because of the properties of the model. It's discrete. It has like some state transitions, and it has, interactions between cells. And so all those things can, they're computational equivalent to things in the real world. And so that's an interesting topic that we haven't really gotten into very much in this group. It's just that they, it's something, if you're talking about models and you're talking about like neuroscience or biology, it's an important conversation to have, whether your model is, sort of realistic enough. In fact, we had that comment in the reviews of our paper. Is this a realistic representation of development? And so it's always something people are thinking about, but there is a sort of a philosophy and a theory behind it. So they talk about emergence and computation, and so this is, so I said, it gets in the weeds quite a bit on that argument, but it's interesting. The final paper I'm going to talk about is this role of representation in cognitive neurobiology. This is about 10 years old. So the abstract says, what role does the concept of representation play in the context of experimentation and explanation in cognitive neurobiology? It's a question. In this article, a distinction is drawn between minimal and substantive roles for representation. It is argued by appeal to a case study that representation currently plays a role in cognitive neurobiology, somewhere between minimal and substantive, and that this is problematic given the ultimate explanatory goals of cognitive neurobiological research. It has suggested that what is needed for representation to instead play a substantive role. In other words, it's hard to know, like, what the role of representations is, I guess. So the idea that learning and memory requires experience-dependent changes in synaptic strength is a cornerstone of modern cognitive neurobiology. The corresponding idea that learning and memory involve changes in internal representations in the brain, however, is often not explicitly acknowledged among cognitive neurobiologists. This is primarily because, as I aim to demonstrate in this article, representations have a peculiar status in cognitive neurobiology. In the one sense, cognitive neurobiologists are interested in what organisms trained in experimental learning paradigms actually learn. So it's hard to actually know what they're learning, what the changes in the internal representations actually are. However, their failure to make reference to changes in internal representations is either the cause of observable changes in behavior or the effects of cellular and molecular activities, indicates that they're not interested in knowing precisely what organisms learn, only that learning does or does not occur. As I will show, the ambiguous role of representation in cognitive neurobiology is problematic in light of the purported explanatory goal. So this paper, is rather long, but it kind of discusses this issue of representation. So, representation, you have sort of what's going on at the molecular and cellular level, and then you move up to the level of what's going on in the brain, neurons interacting, and then you have this output of behavior. And the idea is that there's this intermediate layer of the neurons interacting and things like that, that is where sometimes some people talk about internal representations and how they reside in that place. But how do you say, if you do, say, a behavioral study, how can you go back and say, okay, this is the representation that's being used for this behavior? Or if you're doing like a molecular study or a cellular study, you can say, okay, these changes contribute to changes in this representation or build this representation. So to make this a little bit more concrete, if you think about spatial cognition is a domain where we have a pretty good idea of what the internal representations look like. In fact, there are cells that have been proposed, like place cells and grid cells, that actually are very explicitly tied to that representation. So if you have place cells, they are representations of places, or grid cells are representations of sort of a spatial reference frame for space. When an organism moves around space, these cells are activated, and there's this representation that's built from the activation of those cells. And we know precisely where they are in the brain, and we know how they work, more or less. And that's not always true. And it's also true in the cerebellum to an extent. Again, with the cerebellum, you're regulating movement. So if you move your hand to reach for a cup and pull it to your mouth, you have a pretty good idea of how the cells are representing that movement in the cerebellum. But there are other parts of the brain where we don't know what the representation is. It's very hard to know. And so these are all things that are, I think maybe it does depend on the subsystem. It also, though, depends on how we view these representations overall, just kind of how we think about them. And I think it's worth talking about, how, we talk about representations, how they're actually being represented, say, at the molecular and cellular level, and then how they're, like, if you can go from behavior and move backwards to see what the representation is in the brain. It's sometimes maybe assumed, but it's not really interrogated very much. So this is the Google Drive where you can find these papers if you're interested in following up on them. And does anyone have any comments or questions about any of that?
I think they're great papers. I look forward to reading pretty much all of them. I mean, the Allostasis one is particularly interesting, obviously, for Anson stuff, but I've been curious about things from that angle, and other papers were, those are all. This is a good set of papers. So thank you for curating those.
Yeah.
I have one thing I would add to them, but I'll let people, if anybody else wants to say anything about the papers first, go ahead.
Yeah, basically what Jesse said, I think they're really interesting. I'd like to look more into them. I might actually bring up one of them for the reading group, the Cogstar reading group.
I haven't heard anything from them.
Yeah, I haven't either. I kind of assumed everyone could see you, but yeah.
Yeah, the predictive regulation one looks like really interesting. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that we've done like there's a whole like there probably could be like a representation or a complexity team or whatever subgroup somewhere in GitHub or whatever else because that's a whole line of inquiry in Lab too. I will mention two things. One, well, I don't know. I'll see what I can do about this. I'm trying to share my screen. One of them is a textbook, and one of them is a broader resource. I had one of my, it's kind of an adjacent group to Neuromatch and Princeton and other groups that I've been in. Someone mentioned, hey, is anyone interested in like bridging like AI and neuroscience and stuff? And I was like, oh yeah, me, I raised my hand basically, and other people did too, and kind of a discussion, and it fits with this. And someone, there was a whole set of resources, kind of around a bunch of things, and someone, I won't mention who specifically for different reasons, but someone basically has compiled a huge list of resources, and on different things, not all about this subject here, but like about learning and attention that come up, and we got into a little discussion. And one of the things that came out of the discussion was a book, a handbook, a textbook, and I'll quickly show what that is. That's so weird. It's basically a let me say it right, developmental. Did I just deny myself again? It's not showing. Hold on. I don't know why it does that. But let's try this again. Here. This book, Developmental Cognitive Neuroscience, 4th edition, Johnson and DeHaan. This is one of the recommendations that they had, and I'll probably be looking at this too, just so you can see the content. This is more of a technical approach and neuroscience, but developmental neuroscience, I think this may help. This will probably give us some good things to look at regarding, fleshing out some of the developmental AI stuff.
Yeah.
Because this is like a straight up textbook on this. So.
Oh, you have this as a PDF.
Yeah, I have this. If anybody needs access to this, I basically, in essence, gifted this. But I have the whole book if people want any, parts of it or talk about it or whatever. So that's there. Just to mention that, and I think that kind of blends with some of the papers that we talked about too. So that's it. I know it's late. I won't say much more than that. But there's a lot to refine ahead.
Yeah, I think we did a pretty good job with Neuromatch. So let me see if I can. I don't know. Did people get the ResearchGate link? It may have been really early in the.
Yeah, it's still in the chat for me.
Okay, yeah. So that's the preprint as it stands now. So it's already got 25 reads. So people are interested in the topic. We can again update it as we see fit. You can just upload a new version to ResearchGate. It's not that hard. So, but I think it's so on ResearchGate we have a group or yeah, I think it's a research topic called like developmental Bradenburg vehicles, and so I've added that onto that. So we've got like a couple of papers in that group, and people are following it, and so we'll just keep getting buzz, getting people interested, refining the idea. Yeah, we didn't talk too much about representations explicitly in the context of developmental AI, but it might be worth thinking more about that too. Like, if we have a developmental system, what is it about, like, when the brain starts building representations versus when it's kind of assembling? What is that? Because I don't know if you've seen the paper that I published in Frontiers recently, but I kind of talk about that issue a little bit in there with respect to C. elegans. So, in C. elegans, you have this connectome. We can measure every cell in the connectome, and we kind of know how it's connected together. And then we know something about the synapses now. And so all that builds up, and like as it's an embryo, and then as it hatches from its embryo, and it starts to produce coherent behaviors. It goes from like a bunch of cells that are sort of being born, and then they're connected through electrical connections, and then there's muscle twitching, and then all of that sort of culminates in the worm being hatched and becoming a larva. And then when the larva is hatched, then the cells establish axons and synapses, and then you start to see really coherent behaviors. And the question is, when do those, from that, when you think about that sort of sequence of events, so when do the representations emerge? So we know they have some representations, say, of like, movement, some representation of sensory inputs, like touch. They use a lot of touch. They use a lot of chemosensory inputs. So there's representations. In C. elegans, they're not really cognitive per se, but they're definitely representing information. And so then the question is how did those just kind of emerge from nothing? That's the question we can ask in development, as opposed to like an adult where the representations are either there or they're not. They might emerge through learning, but like, in development, you have this really interesting question of, well, they have to emerge from nothing because they might learn something, but there's nothing before it. So it's like, how does that all come to be? And I think that's a really interesting question that I don't think people really thought about too much. Yeah. So, well, if there are no more questions, we'll wrap it up for today. Thanks for attending. Sorry about the link snafu. I actually forgot to generate an instance this week, so I had a link in the email, and anyways, but I think we got through the meeting well. So next week we'll probably talk more about, we'll talk more about this blog post following up from Neuromatch, and then maybe talk about some of the things that we might do to the end of the year. So, we have a couple things that we mentioned, and then maybe following up on this submission, this X Baby Minds paper, and maybe the other submission, we'll hear something about it, and then we'll see what we can do by the end of the year, what our plan is for that. So
yeah, I think I'll either me or Bradley, I can kind of set up a draft blog like document thing. I think that'd be good, because I'm very much like, as someone who's not done what I wanted to do on many conferences and events, like, get everything out of your head as soon as you can.
Yeah.
Because it takes longer to get out later. So write your experiences down about Neuromatch in the blog post now. Is my gentle nudge, but it's mostly just me yelling at myself, because that's what I have to do. Because I have so much. I've been saying it for a while, and I'm trying to put myself on the spot about it. So, yeah. I look forward to that and everything else. And it was good to see everybody this weekend.
Yeah, good to see everyone. So take care. See you